what if I told you that the company that made your car is more powerful than a lion? Not just more powerful, but in a very real sense, more real. A lion can be hunted, it can die, and then it's gone. But a company like Google, or a nation like France, or the concept of the US dollar, you can't touch them, you can't see them, yet they can move millions of people to action. They exist purely in our collective imagination. That single idea that our world is run by powerful, shared fictions is the master key to understanding the entire 70,000-year history of our species. It's the secret to how a bunch of insignificant apes minding their own business in a corner of Africa ended up walking on the moon and splitting the atom. We didn't get there because we were stronger or even individually smarter. We got there because we are the only animal on Earth that can cooperate flexibly in massive numbers. And we do it by believing in stories.
And just like that, welcome back to You Are What You Read. I'm Jane, and that was my co-host, Sam. And that mind-bending idea you just heard about shared fictions is the first of 3 seismic lessons we're pulling from one of the most talked-about books of the last decade, Sapiens, A Brief History of Humankind by Yuval Noah Harari. Sam, I have to say, starting with the idea that Google is more real than a lion is a perfect way to get into this book. It's huge, it's dense, it covers hundreds of thousands of years. Our goal today is to give everyone listening the absolute core of Harari's argument. So you've hooked us with this cognitive revolution. What are the other major turning points he walks us through?
Absolutely. Harari structures our entire history around 3 major revolutions. The first is that cognitive revolution we just touched on, the birth of fiction and abstract thought around 70,000 years ago. The second, and this one is incredibly controversial, is the agricultural revolution, which he calls history's biggest fraud. And the third is the ongoing process of the unification of humanity, where forces like money, empires, and religion pulled all of humanity into a single global civilization. Each one completely rewired what it meant to be human.
History's biggest fraud? Okay, you can't just drop that and walk away. My entire education taught me that agriculture was the foundation of civilization. The moment we went from being primitive hunter-gatherers to sophisticated builders of society. How on earth can he call it a fraud?
This is one of the most brilliant and counterintuitive arguments in the book. Harari's point is that we always look at the agricultural revolution from the perspective of the species. For Homo sapiens as a collective, it was a massive success. It allowed our population to explode from a few million worldwide to billions. But if you look at it from the perspective of the individual human, it was a catastrophe.
Hold on, a catastrophe? How? We had a stable food source. We could settle down.
Did we, though? A hunter-gatherer might have had a lean season, but their diet was incredibly varied. They ate berries, nuts, mushrooms, dozens of different plants and various animals. They were healthier, taller, and suffered from less infectious disease. Their work week was also likely shorter and much more varied. A little hunting, a little gathering, a lot of socializing. Then comes agriculture. Suddenly, 90% of your diet is one thing: wheat, or rice, or potatoes. This was a nutritional disaster. Farmers were on average shorter, more disease-ridden, and had worse teeth. And their work was backbreaking. You're spending all day, every day, hunched over, tending to this one incredibly demanding plant, defending it from weeds and pests. You're not just guarding your settlement, you're guarding a field. You're suddenly vulnerable to drought or blight in a way a mobile hunter-gatherer never was.
So you're saying we traded a better quality of life for a higher quantity of life? We basically accepted worse individual lives in exchange for being able to have more babies and feed more people?
Exactly. Harari has this incredible line where he says, it wasn't that we domesticated wheat, it was that wheat domesticated us. Think about it from the wheat's perspective. 10,000 years ago, it was just a wild grass in a small patch of the Middle East. Now, it's one of the most successful plants in planetary history. And how did it do it? It convinced this particular ape, Homo sapiens, to dedicate their lives to clearing forests for it, fetching water for it, and spreading its seeds everywhere. We became its servants.
Wow, that reframing is powerful. It makes me think about so many modern advancements. We adopt new technologies or new ways of working because they promise efficiency or progress. But do we ever stop to ask if they're actually making our individual day-to-day lives better? The smartphone is supposed to connect us, but now we have this pressure to be on 24/7. It feels like a modern version of being domesticated by our own invention.
That's the perfect parallel. Harari calls the agricultural revolution a luxury trap. Each generation just makes a small change that seems logical at the time. Let's just plant a little bit of wheat here to supplement our food. Then the next generation plants more because they've grown accustomed to it. Soon, you've completely forgotten how to live any other way, and you're trapped. You can't go back. The population has grown too large to be supported by foraging. You've passed a point of no return.
So you're saying we've had the cognitive revolution, which gave us the power of stories, the agricultural revolution, which trapped us but allowed us to multiply. That brings us to your third point, the unification of humanity. How did we go from scattered, competing farming villages to the interconnected world we have today, where a virus in one city can shut down the entire planet in a matter of weeks?
Harari argues that for most of history, humans lived in separate worlds. A Mayan in Central America and a peasant in China might as well have been on different planets. They had no conception of each other's existence. But over the last few millennia, three great universal orders emerged that wove everyone together. These are the most powerful stories we've ever told. The first is money.
Okay, that one makes immediate sense. Everyone, everywhere understands money.
Right, but think about why. A dollar bill is just a piece of patterned paper. It has no intrinsic value. You can't eat it or drink it. It has value for one reason only, because everyone believes it has value. It is a system of pure, universal trust. A Christian from Spain and a Muslim from Syria in the Middle Ages might be trying to kill each other over their religious stories, but they would both happily accept the same gold coin. Money is the ultimate fiction because it's the only story almost everyone believes. It allows strangers who don't trust each other on any other level to cooperate effectively.
So money is the first great unifier. What's the second?
The second is empires. Now, this is another one that makes us uncomfortable because empires are built on conquest, violence, and oppression. And Harari doesn't shy away from that at all. But he argues that over the long term, empires have been a powerful force for unification. They forcibly melt down dozens or hundreds of distinct cultures into one larger one. Think about the Roman Empire. They conquered countless tribes, Gauls, Iberians, Celts, each with their own language, gods, and traditions. Over centuries, they were all assimilated. They started speaking Latin, using Roman law, and eventually saw themselves as Roman. Most of the cultures we value today are the legacy of some brutal empire that stamped out other cultures to create them.
So the idea is that while the process is horrific, the outcome is a larger shared identity. That a modern Italian has more in common with a modern Spaniard because they were both part of the Roman Empire's legacy, even if their ancestors were warring tribes.
Precisely. Empires create vast territories with standardized laws, languages, and norms, which makes it easier for ideas, goods, and people to move around. They break down the barriers between small local cultures and forge larger imagined communities.
Okay, so we have money and empires. What's the third unifier?
The third is universal religions. Before, say, the first millennium BC, religions were local. The god of the Jericho River Valley had no jurisdiction over the Indus River Valley. Your gods were tied to your people and your place. But then a new kind of story emerged, religions like Buddhism, Christianity, and Islam, which for the first time claimed to have a universal truth for all people everywhere. They were missionary, They argued that their truth, their God, their path to salvation was valid for everyone, regardless of where they lived or what kingdom they belonged to. This created another layer of imagined connection that could transcend political borders. A Buddhist monk in Japan and one in Thailand felt part of the same community, bound by the same stories and rules, even if their empires were enemies.
So these three things, money, empires, and religion, are these massive, overlapping stories that slowly erased the divisions between human groups and pulled us all into one sphere of interaction.
Exactly. They created the playing field for a global culture to emerge, which leads us to the final revolution Harari discusses, which is really a product of these other forces, the scientific revolution.
And how does that fit in?
The scientific revolution was built on one radical new idea: admitting ignorance. For millennia, human knowledge systems, mostly religions, claimed to have all the important answers. The holy books explained everything you needed to know about the world. Science, by contrast, starts with the admission, we don't know. It assumes our current knowledge is incomplete and seeks new knowledge through observation and experiment. This mindset, combined with the global networks created by empires and funded by the trust system of money and capitalism, unleashed unprecedented power. It gave us the power to cure diseases, to travel the globe in hours, and, terrifyingly, to destroy ourselves completely. It's the culmination of our history. Our ability to cooperate around the story of the scientific method has given us godlike powers of creation and destruction.
Okay, Sam, this is an incredible framework for all of human history. The cognitive revolution gives us the software to create stories. The agricultural revolution gives us the population density. The unification of humanity gives us the global network. And the scientific revolution gives us the power. But here's the crucial question for everyone listening. Why does this matter? How does knowing this history of shared fictions and massive revolutions change how I live my life tomorrow?
I think it's the single most empowering takeaway from the book. It forces you to look around at your world and realize that most of the things that structure your life, the things that cause you stress or give you purpose, are not natural, objective realities. They are constructs. Human rights are not a law of physics. They are a story we decided to tell and believe in after centuries of telling much worse stories. The corporation you work for isn't a physical thing. It's a legal fiction we all agreed to respect. The nation you feel patriotic about is an imagined community.
So if I'm feeling stuck in a career path I hate or frustrated by a political system that seems broken, Harari's perspective is that I'm not fighting against the laws of nature like gravity. I'm pushing against a story. And stories can be questioned, they can be changed, they can be rewritten.
Exactly. It doesn't mean it's easy. These are incredibly powerful stories that millions of people believe in. You can't just decide money isn't real and stop paying your rent, but it changes your fundamental relationship with these structures. You see them as they are, tools that were invented by humans, and it prompts you to ask the most important question. Does this story still serve us? Does the story of endless economic growth serve us in an age of climate change? Does the story of our particular nation serve the goal of human flourishing on a global scale?
It gives you a sense of agency even when facing these massive systems. It moves them from the category of inevitable fact to collective choice. And it makes you realize how much of our daily lives are governed by narratives. The culture at our company, the brand allegiances we have, the social hierarchies we navigate. They're all based on stories we've collectively agreed to live inside.
And once you see the stories, you can't unsee them. It's like getting the source code for human society. You start to see why we behave the way we do, why our societies are structured the way they are, and you see both the immense power and the immense fragility of the world we've built. It's all resting on our continued ability to believe in the same fictions.
Which is a pretty sobering and electrifying thought to end on.
It does. Harari ends the book by looking toward the future, asking what happens when our technology, born from the scientific revolution, allows us to rewrite not just our stories, but our own biology through genetic engineering and artificial intelligence. The next revolution might be the end of Homo sapiens as we know it, replaced by something else of our own design.
Perfect. slightly terrifying cliffhanger.
So, for everyone listening, here's our challenge for you this week, straight from the heart of Sapiens. We want you to pick one powerful institution or concept in your life. It could be the company you work for, the value of the money in your bank account, the laws of your country, or even the concept of marriage.
And take a moment to really think about it through Harari's lens. Ask yourself, what is the shared story that makes this thing real? Who had to believe in it and continue to believe in it for it to have power? And then the big question, does this story serve you and the people around you? Let us know in the comments what you chose to analyze. We would love to read about the fictions that shape your world. It's an exercise that can genuinely change the way you see everything.
Thank you for joining us on another episode of You Are What You Read. Until next time.